The morning light streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the familiar clutter of coffee mugs and half-read newspapers. I stirred my cup of dark roast, savoring the rich aroma that filled the air. Portland mornings had a way of wrapping themselves around me, offering comfort in their routine. Yet, beneath the surface of this mundane existence, a restlessness brewed. My marriage to David had settled into a predictable rhythm. We shared our lives like two ships passing in the night, polite exchanges over breakfast and evenings spent in separate corners of the house. Conversations had dwindled to logistical discussions about bills or weekend plans. There was a time when laughter echoed through our halls, but now it felt like an echo from a distant past. As I sipped my coffee, my thoughts drifted to Ethan, my stepson. At 21, he was on the cusp of adulthood, navigating his own path while still tethered to our family unit. I remembered his laughter from last summer during our trip to the Rose Festival. The vibrant colors of blooming flowers had seemed to mirror something within me, an awakening that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. That day at the festival was etched in my mind. Ethan had worn a bright blue shirt that brought out his eyes, and for a fleeting moment, I caught myself staring at him as he engaged with friends. It was innocent enough, a simple motherly pride, but there was an undercurrent that made my heart race. The warmth of his presence lingered long after we returned home. I shook off these thoughts as I prepared for another day filled with mundane chores and responsibilities. But as I tidied up the living room, something caught my eye, a family photo tucked away on the bookshelf. It was an old picture from when Ethan was just a child, his face smeared with chocolate cake at his birthday party. His innocent smile tugged at something deep within me. Where did the time go? I murmured to myself as I traced my fingers over the frame. In that moment, memories flooded back, moments spent together during those carefree years before life grew complicated. Later that afternoon, while sorting through some boxes in the attic, I stumbled upon an old journal filled with my youthful dreams and aspirations. It was like opening a time capsule. Each page revealed fragments of who I once was, the ambitious woman who dreamed of traveling and writing stories that would inspire others. But life had taken its course, leading me to this quiet existence where dreams lay dormant beneath layers of routine. Mom, can you help me with something? Ethan's voice broke through my reverie as he appeared at the attic door. Of course, I replied, setting aside my journal and trying to mask my earlier distractions. He needed help finding some old sports equipment for an upcoming game with friends. As we rummaged through boxes together, our shoulders brushed against each other occasionally, a fleeting connection that sent unexpected jolts through me. Each accidental touch felt charged with unspoken energy. It left me breathless yet confused. Do you remember when we played catch in the backyard? He asked suddenly, pulling out a dusty baseball glove. I smiled at the memory, the sun setting behind us as we laughed together under golden rays. Yes. You were terrible at first, I teased lightly. He chuckled softly but then turned serious for a moment. I missed those days. So did I, more than he could know. The afternoon faded into evening as we shared stories about our lives since then, his college experiences and my attempts at rekindling some semblance of passion in daily routines. As night fell outside and shadows danced across the room, something shifted between us, a tension that hadn't been there before. Ethan stood closer than necessary as he spoke about his plans after graduation, his hopes to travel before settling down into adulthood's responsibilities. The way he spoke about adventure sparked something within me, a yearning for more than what life had offered thus far. Maybe you should write about your travels, I suggested lightly, trying to steer away from thoughts that felt too intense for comfort. Maybe you should join me, he replied unexpectedly, his gaze locking onto mine with intensity that made my heart race again. In that moment, time seemed to pause as we stood there surrounded by memories both cherished and complicated, an unspoken bond forming between us amidst layers of familial ties and societal expectations. As days passed into weeks following our attic encounter, those stolen glances became more frequent, lingering moments where words hung heavy in the air between us without ever being spoken aloud. Each interaction felt charged with possibilities yet weighed down by guilt, the knowledge that navigating these feelings could lead us both into uncharted territory filled with consequences neither of us were prepared to face fully. One rainy afternoon found me wandering through Forest Park alone, the rustling leaves whispering secrets only nature understood while providing solace away from home's confines. My thoughts circled back again and again to Ethan. How could one person stir such emotions within me? A chance encounter later that week changed everything again when David announced last-minute plans for dinner with friends just as Ethan arrived home unexpectedly early from classes. Our paths crossing at an oddly opportune moment where tension crackled anew between us like static electricity waiting for release. "I thought you'd be out tonight," Ethan said casually, but there was an edge beneath his words, a hint of disappointment perhaps. "I didn't expect David's plans either," I replied softly while avoiding eye contact. Fear mingling with excitement coursed through me simultaneously. What would happen if we embraced this connection fully? Our conversation shifted toward light-hearted topics, the latest movies or music trends, but beneath it all lingered unvoiced desires threatening to spill over any moment now if left unchecked too long. And then it happened. A shared look lingered longer than intended across our kitchen table, eyes locking onto one another's until everything else faded away into oblivion around us. In those precious seconds stretched infinitely before reality crashed back down upon us like waves against rocks, I blinked, first breaking whatever spell held us captive momentarily, but not without feeling its weight pressing heavily against both hearts caught up amidst this tempestuous storm brewing silently beneath surface-level interactions. What did this mean? Where would it lead? No answers surfaced, yet only questions remained unanswered, swirling endlessly within minds struggling against societal norms dictating boundaries drawn firmly around familial relations. But deep inside lay an undeniable truth. Something beautiful yet fraught existed between us, waiting patiently for acknowledgement amidst chaos surrounding everyday life. The family gathering unfolded under the warm glow of late afternoon sun, the kind that made everything seem more vibrant. Laughter echoed through the house, mingling with the scent of roasted vegetables and sweet desserts. I moved through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries and small talk while my mind wandered elsewhere. My stepson, David, was present, his presence both a comfort and a source of turmoil. He appeared at ease among relatives, sharing stories that elicited genuine laughter. Yet there was an unspoken tension between us, a current that pulsed beneath the surface of casual conversations. Each time our eyes met across the room, a flicker ignited, a shared glance lingered longer than it should have. I quickly looked away, heart racing in response to a feeling I struggled to suppress. "Mom, can you help me with this?" David called from the kitchen, his voice breaking through my thoughts. I moved toward him, drawn by both duty and an inexplicable urge to be near him. "Sure," I replied, stepping into the cramped space filled with family members preparing food. The air buzzed with excitement as we worked alongside one another. Our shoulders brushed occasionally, igniting sparks that sent shivers down my spine. "Do you think Grandma will like this?" he asked, holding up a dish he had prepared. "Absolutely," I responded with a smile that felt too wide for my own liking. "You've really outdone yourself." As we exchanged words about recipes and family traditions, I couldn't shake the feeling that something more profound lingered just beneath our interactions. A sense of longing hung in the air like an uninvited guest. Later in the evening, as guests mingled outside under twinkling fairy lights strung from trees, I found myself standing apart from the crowd. David joined me on the porch's edge, his expression contemplative as he gazed out into the distance. "Beautiful night," he remarked softly. "Yes," I agreed, my heart thudding against my chest. The silence stretched between us like an invisible thread pulling taut. In that moment of stillness, something shifted within me. I turned to face him fully, our eyes locked in an intensity that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. It was as if time had paused around us while everything else faded away. Without thinking, perhaps driven by some deep-seated desire, I leaned closer to him. The world around us disappeared entirely as our lips met briefly but unmistakably, a kiss that surprised both of us before we pulled back abruptly. "What just happened?" he asked breathlessly, his eyes wide with shock. "I don't know," I stammered back nervously. My mind raced with confusion and guilt over what had just transpired between us. We stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity, two people caught in a moment neither expected nor wanted to confront publicly. Then came a loud cheer from inside where relatives celebrated someone's birthday. It broke our trance and brought us back to reality. "I should go check on them," David said awkwardly before retreating into the house without another word. I remained on the porch alone for several minutes afterward. Thoughts swirled chaotically in my mind like leaves caught in autumn winds. What did this mean? Was it merely an impulsive act spurred by fleeting emotions? Or was it something deeper lurking beneath layers of family dynamics? The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter and conversation. However, every interaction felt strained now, tainted by what had occurred outside moments earlier. As guests began to leave one by one later on that night, I helped clean up alongside David again, our shared glances now filled with unspoken words laden with tension rather than warmth. "I'm sorry about earlier," he finally said quietly after we'd finished stacking dishes in silence for too long. "No need to apologize," I replied carefully while avoiding his gaze. Shame washed over me as memories replayed vividly in my mind, the kiss lingering like smoke from extinguished candles. After everyone departed and calm returned to our home once more, I retreated into my room feeling heavier than usual, a weight pressing down upon me fueled by confusion over emotions previously hidden away so securely within myself until now. How could this have happened? How could something so innocent turn into something so complicated? As sleep eluded me that night amidst restless thoughts racing through my head again and again, I knew one thing: whatever bond existed between David and me had irrevocably changed forevermore. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, illuminating the remnants of the previous night's turmoil. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, my heart heavy with guilt and confusion. The world outside seemed oblivious to the storm brewing within me. How could I reconcile these feelings? The line between right and wrong had blurred, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty. I picked up an old journal from my nightstand, its leather cover worn and familiar. Flipping through the pages, I stumbled upon entries from years ago, dreams of travel, aspirations of writing a novel, and reflections on love that felt distant now. Each word echoed a part of me long suppressed under layers of duty and expectation. What happened to that woman? I whispered to myself. As I read on, memories flooded back, laughter shared with friends at local coffee shops, exploring Portland's vibrant culture during festivals. Those moments felt like a lifetime ago. The journal revealed not just my dreams but also desires that had gone unacknowledged for too long. My heart raced as I recalled David's smile, the way it lit up his face during our brief exchanges. I shook my head, trying to dispel those thoughts. It was wrong to linger on them, they only complicated matters further. Yet, how could I ignore the undeniable attraction? Each glance exchanged between us carried weight, an electric charge that left me breathless. Later that day, while preparing dinner, I found myself lost in thought again. The scent of rosemary filled the kitchen as I chopped vegetables methodically. Memories of our shared looks danced in my mind like shadows refusing to fade away. Just then, David entered the room, his presence stirring something deep within me. "Hey," he said casually, leaning against the doorway with an easy smile that made my heart skip a beat. "Hi," I replied softly, trying to maintain composure. He stepped closer to help with dinner preparations. Our hands brushed against each other more than once, a simple touch laden with unspoken words and shared secrets. My pulse quickened as we worked side by side in silence. As we set the table together later that evening, our proximity felt charged with anticipation, a tension neither of us dared to acknowledge openly. "Can you pass me the salt?" he asked casually. I reached for it but hesitated as our fingers touched again, this time lingering longer than necessary. In that moment, everything else faded away. It was just us in our own world where nothing mattered but this connection. Suddenly aware of what was happening between us and how inappropriate it was, I pulled my hand back sharply and turned away to hide my flushed cheeks. "Sorry," I murmured awkwardly. David's gaze held mine for a heartbeat longer before he looked down at his plate, an expression crossing his face that mirrored my own turmoil, a mixture of longing and fear. That night after dinner was a blur. Conversations felt stilted as we skirted around what had transpired earlier in the evening. The weight of secrecy hung heavily over us both like fog rolling into Portland's streets, thick and suffocating. In bed later that night, sleep eluded me once more as thoughts spiraled out of control again. Our lips met once more in an imagined moment where everything would be different if only we dared to cross that line again. Days turned into weeks filled with stolen glances and tension-laden silences. Each day became a balancing act between duty as a stepmother and these burgeoning feelings threatening to break free from their confines. The weight began affecting every aspect of my life. Mundane tasks felt monumental under this strain. At work during lunch breaks at nearby coffee shops where laughter echoed around me like distant thunderclaps, their joy only heightened my sense of isolation amid this emotional storm brewing inside me. One afternoon while sipping coffee alone at one such shop nestled amongst Portland's bustling streets filled with art galleries showcasing local talent, I caught sight of an old friend across the room, a familiar face from years past who had once known all too well about my aspirations before life took over completely. "Is that you?" she exclaimed when she spotted me approaching her table filled with sketches laid out haphazardly alongside half-finished lattes. "It's been ages." We exchanged pleasantries before she asked about family life, my husband, and how things were going overall since we last met up years ago amidst our youthful dreams full of potential yet unfulfilled now. I hesitated for a moment before answering honestly, "It's complicated." Her eyes narrowed curiously before she pressed further into what exactly made it complicated. Was there someone else? Did I still write? Each question felt like daggers piercing through layers built around vulnerability until finally breaking down defenses completely when she simply asked if I was happy. Happy? How could anyone define happiness when weighed down by secrets? As we parted ways after promising not to let so much time pass again, I couldn't shake off her words echoing in my mind long after she left. "You deserve joy." That evening back home after dinner preparations were done, I found myself staring out into Forest Park beyond our backyard, the trees swaying gently under twilight skies reminiscent of whispered promises made long ago. David appeared beside me unexpectedly breaking through reverie without warning. "What are you thinking about?" he asked quietly glancing towards where I stood lost in thought moments earlier. Before responding instinctively, I turned towards him feeling drawn closer than ever before as if gravity itself conspired against reason urging forward towards something inevitable waiting patiently beneath layers built up over years spent apart. "We need to talk," he said suddenly breaking through silence hanging thickly between us, the air charged with anticipation as if fate had conspired against us both leading here tonight finally ready for whatever came next. The weight of our unspoken feelings hung in the air as I looked into his eyes. A mixture of fear and exhilaration coursed through me. "We need to talk," he said, breaking the silence that enveloped us. The urgency in his voice echoed my own internal turmoil, and I nodded, uncertain of where this conversation would lead us. We found a quiet corner in the coffee shop, away from prying eyes. The familiar aroma of roasted beans wrapped around us like a warm blanket, but the comfort was fleeting. I could see curiosity flickering in his gaze as he leaned closer, creating an intimacy that felt both thrilling and terrifying. "I don't want to hide anymore," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Each word landed heavily between us, igniting a spark that had been smoldering for weeks. "I can't pretend this doesn't exist." I swallowed hard, caught between my responsibilities as a stepmother and the undeniable connection we shared. The thought of our families discovering the truth sent shivers down my spine. Yet, the allure was impossible to resist. "What do you propose?" I asked, my heart racing. He hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. "Let's explore this together, just you and me." His eyes held a promise that both thrilled and terrified me. In that instant, I felt an overwhelming urge to say yes. As we left the coffee shop, an unexpected encounter with Mrs. Thompson, our neighbor, sent my heart racing again. She stood on her porch with her dog, her gaze lingering on us as if she sensed something amiss. I forced a smile and waved, feeling exposed under her scrutinizing stare. "Lovely evening," she called out cheerfully but with an undertone of suspicion that made me uneasy. "Indeed," I replied quickly, urging my stepson to keep moving forward. Once we were safely out of earshot, I released a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "Do you think she suspects anything?" he asked nervously. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we need to be careful." The thought of being discovered loomed over us like a dark cloud threatening to burst at any moment. That night felt different, charged with an energy that left me restless yet exhilarated. After dinner with my husband, a mundane affair filled with polite conversation, I found myself retreating into our bedroom earlier than usual. My mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. A soft knock on the door pulled me from my reverie. It was him, my stepson, standing there with tentative hope in his eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked softly. I nodded and opened the door wider for him to enter. As soon as it closed behind him, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. It felt like stepping into another world where only we existed, a world where secrets thrived amidst whispers. "I couldn't stop thinking about what we discussed today," he said cautiously as he moved closer to me. "What if it's too risky?" My voice trembled slightly as uncertainty washed over me once more. He stepped closer still until there was barely any space left between us. "What if it's worth it?" he countered gently but firmly. In that moment, all rational thoughts faded away like wisps of smoke in the air around us. Only raw emotion remained, an overwhelming desire to bridge the gap that had formed between us over years spent apart and unacknowledged feelings buried deep within ourselves. Before I could respond, he reached out tentatively and took my hand in his own, a simple gesture that sent shockwaves through me, a silent agreement hanging heavy between us like unspoken vows waiting patiently for recognition. We spent the night together, would forever change everything about our relationship. The boundaries blurred beyond recognition while time stood still outside those four walls, enveloping us completely within their embrace. Morning light filtered through the curtains when I awoke next to him, his presence both comforting and disconcerting at once, as reality began creeping back into focus around me like fog lifting off water's surface revealing hidden depths below. "What have we done?" My voice broke through silence filled only by soft breathing beside me, the weight of our choices pressing down hard upon my chest making it difficult to draw breath freely again. He turned towards me then, confusion danced across his features mirroring my own turmoil before settling into something deeper, an understanding born from shared vulnerability forged during those stolen moments together under cover of darkness. "It's not just physical," he murmured softly, breaking eye contact briefly before meeting my gaze again with newfound intensity, a spark igniting within those depths promising more than mere attraction ever could. "I know," I replied quietly, feeling tears prick at corners of my eyes threatening to spill over. But reality loomed large just beyond this cocoon we'd created for ourselves. Consequences awaited should anyone discover our secret. The world outside remained unaware but ready to pounce at any sign of weakness shown by either one of us. A sudden noise from downstairs shattered our fragile bubble, a reminder that life continued beyond these walls filled with warmth shared only between two souls drawn together against all odds. What if your father finds out? Anxiety crept back into focus, reminding me just how precarious our situation truly was, every heartbeat echoing louder than before, filling spaces left empty by doubt creeping back into consciousness. "I don't care about him right now," came his reply, laced with defiance yet tinged by uncertainty too, an acknowledgement that neither one knew exactly how far they were willing to go or what they might lose along this treacherous path chosen so willingly despite knowing full well its risks involved. As morning sunlight streamed through windows illuminating dust motes dancing lazily around us, I realized then just how deeply intertwined our lives had become since crossing invisible lines drawn long ago, separating family ties from forbidden desires, threatening everything built over years spent together under one roof. The morning light poured into the kitchen, creating a warm glow that felt almost surreal against the backdrop of my internal chaos. I busied myself with breakfast, the rhythmic clattering of pots and pans a poor cover for the turmoil swirling within me. My husband had left early for work, a brief kiss on my cheek his only farewell. The quiet house echoed with an unsettling stillness, amplifying my thoughts. I glanced at the clock, knowing my stepson would soon arrive. Each day brought with it a mix of anticipation and dread. The connection we shared was intoxicating yet fraught with peril. Every moment spent together felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. I stirred the coffee pot, its rich aroma filling the air, grounding me momentarily in something familiar. As I set the table, memories of our stolen glances and whispered secrets flooded back. The book he had found in my study still lay open on the dining table, a portrait of a young woman gazing out with longing eyes. It felt like a reflection of my own hidden desires. How could something so innocent turn into this tangled web of emotions? The door creaked open just as I poured 2 cups of coffee. He stepped inside, shaking off the remnants of morning chill from his jacket. "Morning," he said, his voice casual but laced with an underlying tension that mirrored my own. "Morning," I replied, trying to keep my tone light as I placed a cup in front of him. Our fingers brushed briefly, an electric jolt coursed through me at that simple touch. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our drinks while the weight of unspoken words hung heavily between us. He looked up suddenly, his gaze penetrating and searching, like he was trying to read what lay beneath my composed exterior. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. "Just tired," I managed to say, though fatigue was not what plagued me. It was this gnawing conflict between duty and desire that threatened to unravel everything I knew. He nodded slowly but didn't look convinced. "You seem different lately." "Different how?" "I don't know, like you're somewhere else." His brow furrowed slightly as if he were trying to piece together fragments of a puzzle that made no sense. I wanted to tell him everything, that this feeling was consuming me whole, but fear held me back. The consequences loomed large in my mind like storm clouds ready to unleash their fury. "I'm just busy," I deflected, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He studied me for another moment before turning his attention to the window where sunlight danced over leaves swaying gently outside. It struck me how much our lives had intertwined in such a short span, 2 souls caught in an intricate dance around boundaries we both knew we shouldn't cross. Suddenly, our quiet breakfast was interrupted by an unexpected sound. The front door swung open again with more force than usual. My heart raced as I recognized my husband's voice calling out from the hallway. "Catherine, are you home?" Panic surged through me like ice water as I exchanged frantic glances with my stepson. His eyes widened slightly in alarm. We both understood what this meant. Our secret would remain hidden for now, but only by the thinnest veil of circumstance. "Quick! Go upstairs!" I whispered urgently, barely able to keep my voice steady as I gestured toward the staircase leading up to his room. He hesitated for just a second before nodding and slipping away quietly while I composed myself at the table, forcing normalcy onto what felt increasingly surreal. My husband strolled into the kitchen moments later, his presence filling the space with familiar comfort mixed with an undercurrent of tension that had become all too common lately. "What are you up to?" he asked casually while pouring himself a cup of coffee without even looking at me directly. "Oh, just breakfast," I replied too quickly, trying not to give anything away despite feeling exposed under his scrutiny. "You seem distracted." He finally turned his gaze toward me, his expression unreadable but sharp enough to cut through any pretense I attempted to maintain. "I'm fine," I insisted more firmly than necessary while fighting against rising guilt pooling within me like dark ink spreading across paper. "Are you sure? You've been acting strange." "I'm just busy with work and everything," I mumbled dismissively, hoping it would satisfy him without raising further questions. He nodded slowly but didn't seem convinced. There was something lurking behind those eyes, a hint of suspicion perhaps? Or maybe it was just concern masked beneath layers of everyday life? As he turned back toward the counter to grab some toast, relief washed over me momentarily until suddenly everything shifted again when footsteps echoed from above, the unmistakable sound of someone descending stairs too quickly for comfort. I shot up from my seat instinctively as dread gripped my heart. What if he came down here? What would happen then? Would all our careful planning unravel before us? Before panic could take hold completely though, a familiar face appeared at the top step. My stepson emerged cautiously, his expression mirroring mine, caught between fear and uncertainty as he glanced at both of us standing there awkwardly frozen in place amidst this precarious situation unfolding around us. "What are you doing?" My husband's voice broke through tension thickening around us like fog rolling into town unexpectedly on an otherwise clear day, a question directed sharply toward him now standing there exposed without any explanation offered yet again. My stepson stammered before glancing nervously between us, caught off guard by being thrust into this unexpected confrontation where secrets hung heavy over every word spoken or unspoken alike. "We were just having breakfast," I interjected quickly hoping to diffuse whatever fragile thread held our reality together before it snapped entirely apart leaving nothing but chaos behind. But even as those words left my mouth, I could feel cracks forming beneath surface-level calmness, a realization dawning upon all three of us lingering uncomfortably amidst silence stretching longer than anticipated while uncertainty loomed large overhead threatening everything we'd built thus far. The conversation shifted awkwardly after that point. My husband eventually retreated back into mundane tasks leaving behind palpable tension lingering in air thick enough one could almost slice through it if they tried hard enough. Once alone again, I turned toward him searching desperately for reassurance or clarity amid swirling confusion clouding judgment entirely. "Are you okay?" His gaze met mine filled with unspoken vulnerabilities echoing throughout this chaotic whirlwind surrounding us both, an understanding passing silently between two hearts beating wildly against societal constraints holding them captive within invisible chains forged by expectations placed upon families everywhere. The air in the house felt thick with unspoken words, each corner a reminder of the tension that had woven itself into our daily lives. I moved through the kitchen, mechanically preparing dinner, my mind elsewhere. Thoughts of him filled my head, the way he looked at me, the secret moments we shared. I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window, an unfamiliar woman stared back. Was this really me? "Dinner's almost ready," I called out, trying to sound casual, but my voice betrayed the storm brewing inside. My husband's response was a distracted grunt from the living room, where he sat engrossed in his newspaper. The distance between us felt insurmountable, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for what had been lost. As I stirred the pot on the stove, memories flooded back, our secret glances over dinner tables and whispered conversations late at night. Each memory seemed to pull me deeper into a chasm of desire and guilt. I had always prided myself on being composed and rational. Now, I felt like a stranger in my own life. "Hey," my husband said suddenly as he entered the kitchen. His eyes searched mine for something, perhaps connection or understanding. Are you okay? I forced a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Just tired, I replied, hoping he would let it go. But he stepped closer, concern etched across his face. Is there something on your mind? You've been distant lately. The weight of his words pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. Just work stuff, I lied, stirring more vigorously than necessary. The bubbling sauce mirrored my inner turmoil, chaotic and boiling over. He nodded slowly but remained unconvinced. If you need to talk. No, I interrupted sharply before softening my tone. I just need some time. The truth was that talking wouldn't change anything, it would only complicate matters further. That evening passed uneventfully but left me restless and anxious. After dinner, as I washed dishes alone at the sink, my phone buzzed on the counter, a text from him. Can we talk later? My heart raced at those simple words. What could he want to discuss? The possibilities swirled in my mind like leaves caught in a gust of wind, each one more chaotic than the last. I texted back quickly, yes. The hours dragged on until finally night fell and silence enveloped our home once more. My husband retired early, leaving me alone with my thoughts and mounting anxiety about our impending conversation. As darkness settled outside, I found myself pacing through the living room like a caged animal awaiting release. When the doorbell rang unexpectedly, it startled me out of my reverie. Who could be visiting at this hour? I opened the door to find him standing there, my stepson, with an expression that mirrored my own confusion and urgency. What are you doing here? I asked softly as relief washed over me mixed with apprehension. I needed to see you, he replied breathlessly as if he had run all the way here from wherever he had been before. I stepped aside to let him in, closing the door behind us as if sealing away all external judgment and expectations from our world outside this small space we shared together. I've been thinking about everything, he began tentatively, his hands shoved deep into his pockets as if shielding himself from what lay ahead. My heart raced again. This was it, the moment where everything could either unravel or solidify into something new between us. What do you mean? My voice was barely above a whisper as anticipation tightened around us both like an invisible thread weaving our fates together. I can't stop thinking about you, he admitted finally after what felt like an eternity hung suspended between us, a fragile moment pregnant with possibility and danger alike. My breath caught in my throat as emotions surged within me, joy mingling with fear, but before I could respond adequately or even comprehend his confession fully. A loud crash echoed from outside followed by frantic barking. A dog had knocked over something in our yard, a jarring reminder of reality intruding upon our fragile bubble of intimacy. We both jumped slightly at the noise before laughter bubbled up between us unexpectedly, a shared moment that lightened some of that tension hanging heavily around us moments before. I guess we should probably talk somewhere quieter, he suggested with a sheepish grin while glancing towards where chaos erupted outside moments ago, still lingering faintly in our minds like echoes fading away slowly yet stubbornly refusing to vanish completely into thin air again just yet. Yes, I agreed softly, feeling drawn toward him again despite everything else swirling around us still threatening to disrupt this newfound connection forming between two people who never expected it would happen quite like this. We moved toward Forest Park, the trees standing tall against starlit skies offering solace amid uncertainty surrounding us both now more than ever before. Strolling along winding paths lined by whispering leaves felt surreal, every step pulling us closer together while simultaneously pushing against boundaries never meant to be crossed, not here nor anywhere else either. What do we do now? He asked quietly, breaking through silence wrapping around us tightly like an embrace neither wanted nor knew how to navigate properly just yet either. We figure it out together, came instinctively without hesitation even though doubts lingered still beneath surface rippling quietly throughout thoughts racing through mind constantly echoing fears lurking just beyond reach waiting for opportunity slip back into shadows once more. Suddenly another message flashed across phone screen, cutting through tender moment shared earlier. My husband's name lit up brightly, demanding attention, urgently demanding answers, unwillingly dragging reality crashing down upon fragile dreams built precariously over time spent hiding away truths long buried beneath layers upon layers carefully crafted. Facades designed to protect hearts broken beyond repair, perhaps even. Can you come home? It read simply, yet carried weight heavier than any words spoken aloud ever could possibly convey, truth hidden within lines written hurriedly, lacking context surrounding circumstances, unfolding rapidly, spiraling out control faster than anyone could anticipate. Panic surged anew, flooding senses, overwhelming clarity, blurring edges, defining right-wrong choices made, a long journey taken so far already leading directly toward inevitable conclusion looming large overhead, threatening obliterate everything built carefully piece by piece, slowly, painstakingly over time spent navigating stormy seas filled uncertainty, darkness lurking everywhere, waiting patiently for chance strike hard when least expected, most vulnerable moments arrive unannounced, catching unaware, leaving devastation behind, wreckage scattered throughout lives once whole now fractured irreparably, perhaps forevermore. We have to go back. My voice trembled slightly, betraying fear lurking just beneath surface, threatening spill forth uncontrollably unless reined back quickly somehow before chaos erupted, fully engulfing everything surrounding us once again, leaving nothing intact, remaining untouched anymore by anything good left behind, desperately clinging hope amidst despair, threatening swallow whole entire existence entirely. He nodded solemnly, understanding gravity, situation weighing heavily down upon shoulders, pressing firmly against hearts beating wildly against confines, societal expectations placed firmly upon families everywhere, forcing compliance, acceptance rather than exploration, desire, longing hidden deep within, shadows cast long across lives lived quietly without question until now. Together we turned away from sanctuary offered briefly only moments ago, retreating instead toward harsh realities awaiting return home, where truths remained buried beneath layers, denial shielding hearts, fragile souls unwilling confront demons lurking close, ready pounce whenever opportunity presented itself, arise unexpectedly, shattering illusions crafted delicately throughout years spent living life pretending everything fine when clearly wasn't anymore, not truly anyway. The air was thick with unspoken words as we settled back into our routine. Every glance exchanged felt heavy, laden with the weight of our shared secret. I could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, a reflection of my own turmoil. The world outside continued its relentless pace, but inside, time seemed to stall, each moment stretching longer than the last. The surprise visit from my old friend, Angela, had stirred something within me, a longing for the carefree days of youth when aspirations danced freely in the air like dandelion seeds on a summer breeze. We met at our favorite coffee shop, a quaint little place nestled between bustling streets, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with laughter. The warm ambience should have felt comforting, but instead, it only amplified my sense of discontent. "How's life treating you?" Angela asked, her eyes sparkling with genuine curiosity. I offered a half-hearted smile. "It's fine. Just busy." "Busy with what?" "You used to have so many dreams," she pressed gently. Her words struck a chord deep within me. I thought of the aspirations I had shelved away, writing, traveling, exploring new horizons. But now, those dreams felt like distant echoes drowned out by the mundane rhythm of daily life and hidden desires that refused to fade. As we chatted about trivial matters, her recent trip to Europe and family updates, I caught sight of my stepson through the cafe window. He was walking past with a friend, laughter spilling from his lips like music I once cherished. My heart raced at the sight. It was both exhilarating and painful to witness him so carefree while I felt shackled by my own choices. "Are you okay?" Angela's voice broke through my thoughts. I nodded quickly but felt a lump form in my throat. "Just thinking." "About what?" I hesitated before answering. "About life and where it's headed." A vague response that held so much more beneath its surface. As we finished our coffees and prepared to part ways, Angela leaned closer. "You know I'm always here for you if you need to talk." Her sincerity warmed me but also reminded me of how isolated I felt in my own home. The truth lingered just beneath my skin like an itch I couldn't scratch without consequences. Later that evening, after dinner with my husband, who remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing within me, I found myself wandering into the quiet sanctuary of my study. Books lined the shelves like old friends waiting patiently for attention. One particular book caught my eye. It was an anthology filled with portraits and stories that spoke volumes about lost love and unfulfilled dreams. I flipped through its pages until one portrait stopped me cold, a woman whose expression mirrored my own feelings, longing wrapped in layers of restraint. An inexplicable connection surged through me as if her story resonated with mine in ways I couldn't articulate. A soft knock startled me from my reverie. It was him, my stepson, standing at the doorframe hesitantly. "Can I come in?" he asked softly, uncertainty etched across his features. "Of course," I replied, trying to mask the tumult within me. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him as if sealing away any chance of eavesdropping from outside ears. The air crackled between us as he approached cautiously. "I saw you at the cafe today," he said quietly. My heart raced at his admission. It felt like an unguarded moment laid bare between us. "Oh? Did you enjoy your day?" He shrugged slightly but didn't meet my gaze directly. "It was okay, just hanging out with friends." Silence enveloped us again as we stood there, two souls caught in an intricate web woven from unspoken truths and hidden desires. The tension escalated until it became almost unbearable. Every breath felt charged with electricity as we stood mere inches apart. "I've been thinking," he finally said hesitantly. "About what?" My voice barely rose above a whisper as anticipation coursed through me. He took a step closer. Vulnerability flickered across his face like candlelight dancing against shadows. "About us, about everything." My heart pounded louder now as reality settled around us, the gravity of our situation pressing down heavily on both our shoulders like an anchor threatening to pull us under if we let it take hold completely. "What do you mean?" I asked cautiously, fearing where this conversation might lead yet yearning for clarity all at once. He hesitated before speaking again. Each word seemed carefully chosen yet laced with sincerity that pierced through layers built over time spent avoiding this very moment together. "I don't want things to be awkward between us anymore." His confession hung in the air between us like fog rolling over Portland's bridges, a delicate balance teetering on the edge of possibility or peril depending on how we chose to navigate this path forward together or apart. In that instant, the world around us faded away, leaving only fragments filled with memories shared, the stolen glances across crowded rooms, the lingering touch during brief encounters, the undeniable connection binding our hearts tightly despite all odds stacked against us. Just then, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, jolting both of us back into reality. It sounded like something had fallen over, a reminder that life continued beyond this fragile bubble we'd created for ourselves amidst chaos swirling around outside these walls. "Stay here," I whispered urgently before rushing toward the door without waiting for an answer. Dread coiled tightly within me as I descended downstairs toward whatever awaited below. Each step resonated deeply against wooden floorboards, echoing anxieties rising alongside uncertainty filling every crevice left unguarded by silence moments ago spent contemplating futures unknown. What awaited below could change everything, and yet still, part of me longed desperately for what lay ahead beyond those thresholds crossed already too far into territory forbidden yet intoxicatingly alluring. The air hung heavy with unspoken words as I descended the stairs, each step a reminder of the choices I had made. The house felt different, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for something to shatter the fragile peace that had settled over us. My heart raced, a steady drumbeat of anxiety echoing in my ears. Outside, the Portland rain drummed against the windows, a steady reminder of the world beyond these walls. In that moment, I could almost hear his laughter, a sound that had become an unexpected comfort in my otherwise mundane life. But laughter was now replaced by silence, and I was left to confront the reality of our situation. He would be leaving soon, embarking on a journey that would take him far from me and this tangled web we had woven together. I crossed into the kitchen, seeking solace in the familiar routine of preparing coffee. The scent filled the space, but it did little to ease the tension coiling within me. My mind drifted back to our last encounter, a secret shared under the cover of night. We spent the night together, echoed in my thoughts like a haunting refrain. The memories flickered like shadows on a wall, his eyes searching mine for answers I couldn't provide. Each glance had been charged with an intensity that left me breathless and terrified all at once. I poured steaming water over grounds, watching as they bloomed and swirled, much like my emotions. A soft knock interrupted my reverie. My husband's voice called from outside, "Catherine? You in there?" I hesitated before answering, weighing my words carefully. "Yes, just making coffee." His footsteps approached, heavy with weariness from a long day at work. As he entered the kitchen, I plastered on a smile that felt more like a mask than an expression of joy. He greeted me with a kiss on my forehead, a gesture that felt both comforting and suffocating. "Busy day?" he asked casually as he leaned against the counter. "Just the usual," I replied nonchalantly while trying to ignore the knot tightening in my stomach. As he chatted about trivial matters, work projects and upcoming plans, I found myself drifting again to thoughts of him, my stepson who stirred feelings within me I never thought possible. How could one person evoke such longing while simultaneously grounding me in guilt? The clock ticked loudly in the background as if counting down to some inevitable conclusion. Each second felt like an eternity until finally he excused himself to check his emails upstairs. Alone again, I let out a shaky breath and stared out at the rain-soaked street beyond our window. The festival was approaching. Vibrant colors would soon fill Portland's streets once more, colors that seemed so distant from my current reality. Suddenly, memories flooded back. The moments spent together in quiet corners of coffee shops where we shared stolen glances and unspoken dreams. The laughter we had exchanged felt bittersweet now. It was tainted by what lay ahead, a future without him close by. A sudden thought struck me: what if he didn't leave? What if we could somehow navigate this tangled web together? But deep down, I knew those thoughts were mere fantasies, dreams built on sand destined to crumble under pressure. With urgency coursing through me, I grabbed my phone and scrolled through old messages between us, each word igniting sparks of nostalgia mixed with regret. In one message he'd written about his plans for college, another spoke of travel dreams we had shared during quiet nights under starlit skies. Then came another knock at the door, a familiar rhythm that sent shivers down my spine. It was him again. His presence filled every corner of my heart with warmth and confusion alike. "Can we talk?" His voice was low but steady as he stepped inside without waiting for an answer. "Of course," I managed to say while trying to mask how quickly my pulse quickened at seeing him again so soon after our last encounter. He closed the door behind him softly before turning towards me, his gaze held intensity underlined by uncertainty, a reflection of what we both faced together yet apart. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said quietly as he took a step closer, each movement deliberate yet fraught with tension between us. "I know," I replied softly, words barely escaping between breaths laden with unspoken truths hanging heavily around us like fog rolling into Portland's streets after dusk. "I don't want to go without telling you." His voice trailed off as if struggling against what lay unsaid. The very thing binding us together yet threatening everything around us, too tightly woven into our lives already frayed at edges from secrets kept too long hidden away beneath layers built over years gone by unnoticed until now. Before he could finish his thought or perhaps even change it entirely into something else entirely different than either one expected, The moment stretched painfully onward until time itself seemed suspended within those four walls surrounding us, both cloaked beneath shadows cast by uncertain light filtering through glass panes nearby, reflecting colors shifting outside beyond reach into tomorrow's promise, still just out of grasp. And then suddenly it happened? Words spilling forth unbidden like water breaking free from dammed confines long held back, too tightly pressed against barriers built around hearts once open, now grown weary, worn down by circumstances beyond control, forcing hand choices made unwittingly leading here. Standing between them, both caught up within whirlwinds spun wild across paths crossed before. I love you. The confession hung suspended in air, thickening between breaths taken too quickly, followed closely behind, uncertainty laced throughout every syllable spoken aloud, reverberating deep inside, resonating echoes lingering long after sound faded away, leaving only silence behind, lingering stillness filled only by rain tapping softly against rooftops outside, echoing life continuing onward despite everything else unraveling before them both. His eyes widened momentarily before narrowing slightly. An expression caught somewhere between disbelief, hope, yearning, confusion, all intertwined within depths unseen, previously hidden away beneath layers built up around hearts drawn closer together despite every reason pulling apart further still. And then, just like that, the moment shattered abruptly when footsteps echoed down hallway leading toward kitchen entrance, breaking spell woven tightly around two souls intertwined amidst chaos unfolding outside their grasp. My husband appeared framed within doorway, looking back expectantly, waiting patiently, unaware, oblivious, entirely unaware, truth hanging precariously above them both, threatening collapse upon realization dawning, slowly creeping forth upon realization, creeping ever closer toward inevitable conclusion looming ahead, casting shadows, darkening light surrounding all they held dear.